Здравствуйте! Вас приветствует канал «Мелочи жизни». Желаем вам приятного просмотра. Как водится, во многих семьях к младшим детям относятся по-другому, нежели к старшим. Родительский спрос в первую очередь со старших, что в общем-то и правильно, потому что старшие сестры и братья – авторитет и предмет для подражания младшим. Так было и в семье, где росли две сестренки – старшая Даша и младшая Маша. Девчонки-погодки и совсем не намного старше Даша своей младшенькой сестренки, но все же. Вот так и росли. Сестры похожи друг на друга внешне, но по характеру разные, как две стихии – вода и огонь. Даша старшая, как и подобает, относилась к Маше снисходительно, все-таки младшенькая. Даша рассудительная, добрая, спокойная, умница, в школе училась на отлично. Маша – ходячая катастрофа, бедовая, непоседливая. Училась не очень хорошо, если не знала, как решить задачу, просила Дашу, а та по доброте душевной решала за нее. Так и повелось в их семье, что Даша была обожаемая, особенно матерью. Отец с Дашей тоже любили ее и относились к ней нетребовательно. Маша хоть и младшая, но с хитринкой, что-нибудь натворит, прижмется к матери, и все ей прощено. А более сдержанная Даша постоянно отдувается за двоих. Мать ей всегда говорила: «Дашка, ты старшая, ты должна во всем помогать мне и Машеньке. Она маленькая, ты должна опекать свою сестренку». А Машенька наматывает себе на ус. Знает, что все для нее. Что она не попросит и не захочет. Даша старалась, помогала всем. Только бы мама относилась к ней хорошо и ласково. Она видела, что к младшей мать относится с большей любовью. Отец это тоже видел. Со временем ему стало это неприятно, но перечить жене он не мог и стал чаще заглядывать в стакан. Правда, не буянил, чаще спал на топчине в кладовке. Жили они в поселке в своем доме. Даше доставалось больше, чем Маше, даже когда они выросли. А избалованная Машенька с годами становилась подленькой. Сама за свои поступки отвечать не хотела и сваливала все на старшую. «Все это Дашка? Это она сделала, это не я!» Прижмется к матери, подкатит ей под бочок, пожалуется на Дашку, а та ей верит и к себе прижимает, целует. «Ты моя хорошая, какая ты у меня ласковая, молодчинка». Ну а Даше достается потом по всем статьям. Маша всегда ждала от матери и сестры помощи. Надеялась, что они за нее все сделают, решат все ее проблемы. Когда обе стали взрослыми, мать, конечно, лучшее покупала младшей, баловала ее все так же. А хозяйством занималась Даша. Несмотря на все это, Даша окончила школу с отличием, и, наверное, это был единственный случай в ее жизни, когда мать ее похвалила скупо, но выдавила из себя. «Молодец, дочь». Даша решила поступать в институт. Ей хотелось уехать из дома, хотелось жить самостоятельно, отвечать только за себя. Когда она сообщила матери, что собирается поступать, та сказала: «Поступай, но только на заочное, потому что денег у меня на тебя нет. Иди, учись и работай». А Маша уже после 9 класса выучилась на парикмахера и работала. Получала зарплату, но денег матери не отдавала. Стригла соседок, зарабатывала себе в карман. Но это ей не мешало жить на родительские деньги. Свои она тратила только на себя. Даша все-таки поступила в институт очно. Вечерами подрабатывала. Не чуралась никакой работы. Мать изредка с какой-нибудь оказией присылала ей картошки, морковки, но дочь и этому была рада. На каникулах она тоже работала. После окончания института тоже с отличием Даша осталась в городе. Ей повезло. Устроилась в большую компанию с приличной зарплатой. Ее быстро заметили, карьера ее стала понемногу расти. Мать, узнав, что Даша зарабатывает хорошо, покупает себе дорогие вещи и в очередной ее приезд домой привезла им подарки, вдруг сказала ей: «Даша, ты у нас старшая, ты должна помогать родителям и младшей сестре». «Мам, ну я же не отказываюсь, всегда вам везу что-нибудь из города. И при чем здесь Машка? Она тоже работает и живет с вами. Почему я ей должна помогать? Мне нужно подумать о своем жилье. Не хочется чужие углы снимать». Матери, конечно, не понравилось, как это она, младшенькая, не хочет помочь. «Ничего себе! Ты посмотри на нее! Выучилась! А когда ты училась, я тебе отправляла продукты. Забыла быстро про мою доброту. А мы тебе последние крохи отправляли». «Мам, да я сама себя кормила и одевала. Хваталась за все работы. Иногда даже ночами работала. Или ты думаешь, что мне одного ведра картошки на полгода хватало? Да, спасибо за картошку, конечно. Но в основном я сама себя содержала. Хорошо, хоть в общаге жила. За квартиру не нужно было платить. Ага, вот так ты заговорила, неблагодарная. Ты всегда такая была. Закричала гневно мать, сообразив, что дочь права. А кто тебя рожал, кто мучился? Все я. Да лучше б ты не родилась, неблагодарная. Нет у меня больше старшей дочери, уходи из дома. Уезжай подальше и больше не приезжай сюда. Забудь к нам дорогу. Маша молча слушала и кивала головой, соглашаясь с матерью. Даша взяла сумку и ушла на электричку, прорыдав всю дорогу до вокзала. Постепенно успокоившись, решила для себя. Ну и ладно, проживу сама, мне не привыкать. Если я им не нужна, то и я забуду о них, вычеркну из своей жизни. А сестра даже не вступилась за меня. Ну и пусть. Конечно, не так просто это сделать, когда у тебя доброе сердце. Хоть и перестала она ездить к родным на выходные и праздники, и даже не звонила им, но в душе переживала, как они там. И как только встречала кого-то из знакомых из поселка, выспрашивала, узнавала о своих. Прошло некоторое время. Даша встретила свою любовь там же, в компании, где и работала. Потом вышла замуж, отправила родителям и сестре приглашение на свадьбу. Но никто из них не приехал. Муж Павел оказался замечательным мужем и отцом, воспитывали сына. Он очень любил свою жену и сына и старался для них. Во всем помогал жене, опекал ее, оберегал от всего негативного. Даша не могла нарадоваться, хоть с мужем ей повезло. Купили в ипотеку 3-комнатную квартиру и уже почти выплатили, когда однажды, приехав с работы, увидели у подъезда на скамейке родителей Даши. Оба выпившие. Бабушка с дедом ни разу в жизни даже не видели своего внука, а здесь заявились, не запылились. Отец еще и кашлял надрывно, и мать какая-то неопрятная. «Дашка, а это мы, к тебе в гости приехали, жить будем с тобой». Поднялась со скамейки мать, покачиваясь. Отец, заикаясь, ее поддержал. «Ага, эта зараза Машка выставила нас из дома». Но мать его оттолкнула. «Ну что ты тут наговариваешь на дочку-то свою? Все это не Машка, это ее новый хахаль. Вот какой-то и попался уголовник. Сказал, что если мы не уберемся, то он нас выкинет или еще того хуже. Это как это? Избавиться от нас. Вот так и сказал. Бедненькая моя Машенька, ну и достался же ей злыдень. Так мы это к тебе. Ты же у нас старшенькая, должна позаботиться о нас, о своих родителях. И что? Я ж тебя родила, ведь не чужие мы тебе». Павел смотрел с неприязнью на родителей жены, которых увидел впервые. Он качал головой. «Что, зятек, головой качаешь? Мы ничего, мы хорошие, а скандалить не будем. Нам жить негде». «Хорошо, пошли. Но жить будете по нашим правилам. И попробуйте что-то обидное и плохое сказать моей жене. Разговаривать с вами буду тогда я». Выделили им отдельную комнату. Сын недавно закончил институт и уехал с подругой в Германию. Живут пока там, работают. Месяца через 3 отец умер. Он постоянно кашлял. В больнице сказали, что долго не протянет. Так и случилось. Младшая дочь на похороны отца не приехала. Мать запила, куда-то уходила, могла 3 дня, а то и больше не приходить домой. Даша вначале волновалась и даже одно время ходила, искала ее. Но она сама заявлялась грязная, с неопрятным запахом, отсыпалась, но потом ушла совсем жить куда-то. Сказала, что с ними ей плохо, и от нее теперь ни слуху, ни духу. Даша с Павлом только перекрестились. Ну и ладно, пусть живет, счастье ей. От Маши тоже ничего не было слышно. Только соседка ее встретилась Даше и рассказала новости. Сестра ее младшая в бизнесе, открыла сеть парикмахерских в районе, живет при деньгах, все у нее есть. Соседка рассказала все подробно. Вскоре умерла мать Даши. Похоронили. Сообщили Маше, но младшенькая и любимая дочь матери не приехала и на ее похороны. Года через 2 после похорон матери вдруг на пороге квартиры Даши и Павла появилась Маша. Располневшая, хорошо одетая, вся в золоте. «Ну, привет, сестра, пустишь квартиру?» произнесла она прокуренным голосом. Маша, «Привет, конечно, проходи. Не ожидала тебя увидеть здесь. Вспомнила, значит, что мы сестры?» — спросила спокойно Даша. «Проходи, сейчас включу чайник, будем пить чай». Они сидели на кухне. Павел был в комнате. «Хорошо живешь, сестренка, богата!» Осматриваясь, говорила Маша. «Мне нужен лимон», — резко сказала Маша. «А, ну сейчас порежу, извини, я забыла, он в холодильнике». Даша поднялась, но сестренка ее осадила. «Ты что, не соображаешь? Мне твой лимон к чему? Ешь его сама. Мне нужен миллион. Ну, лимон, как это в народе говорят. Мы с мужем прогорели и остались должны, и нам грозят расправой. Ты должна мне помочь, ты же старшая сестра». «Ну где я тебе возьму такую сумму? У нас нет таких денег». «Спасай, сестренка. Завтра выставишь на продажу свою трешку, за нее хорошие деньги дадут. И мне дашь миллион, и вам еще останется на домик в деревне. В деревне ведь хорошо, воздух свежий». Даша не могла ничего сказать. Она ошеломленно смотрела на младшую сестру. Да, ничего не поменялось за столько лет. В это время вошел муж Павел. Посмотрел на Машу. «О, здравствуйте. Дашуня, это твоя сестра?» «Сразу понятно. Внешне похожи вы друг на друга. Будем знакомы. Павел». Протягивая руку, сказал он. «Надо же! Впервые за столько лет увидел родную сестру жены. Значит, говорите, трешку продать нужно. А больше вам ничего не нужно продать?» Маша посмотрела на сестру. «Ого, это твой муженек? Да где ты его нашла?» «Мне б такого. Жалко, что раньше не встретился. Уж я бы мимо не прошла». Даша молчала, ей было неудобно за свою сестру, а Павел взял Машу за плечи и приподнял со стула. «Значит так, родственница, я все слышал и не позволю обижать мою жену. Она этого не заслужила. И где же ты была, когда она хоронила твоих отца и мать? Так что вон дверь. Не было у нас тебя 20 с лишним лет. И еще столько же не появляйся здесь. Денег надо миллион. Так сними с себя золото, продай машину и еще что-нибудь, но это твои проблемы. А нам и в нашей квартире хорошо. И без тебя». Машу от злости аж перекосило. «Фу, какой грубиян у тебя мужик, Дашка. Да еще и такой жадный. Я твоя единственная сестра, вы жметесь. А еще и старшая сестра. Пошли вы!» Она выскочила в подъезд, на ходу ругаясь, на чем свет стоит, и проклиная своих родственников. Даша плакала. Всю жизнь живет без родных. Таких родственников и не надо. Павел обнял жену за плечи. «Пусть твоя младшенькая живет без тебя. Жила же она как-то все это время. Прости, родная, что сразу не выгнал ее. Я не дам тебя в обиду. Никому».
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. "Take care." That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry." I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.